7 months after my pregnancy, I accidentally overheard a conversation between my husband and the poor student he had been sponsoring. Joaquin, if your wife finds out that the baby in her womb is actually our fertilized embryo, don't you think she would be so furious that she might take her own life? Beatrice said with a discreet chuckle. It would be more convenient if she did. That way, everything she owns would be mine, Joaquin replied coldly. But the problem would be if she decides to divorce me and kick me out of the house. That's why we must keep this a secret. Once our child inherits her assets, we'll deliver the final blow. That night, I pretended I hadn't heard anything. I gave birth to the baby and raised him with all the care possible. 24 years later, when my son returned from studying abroad, I transferred all the shares of my company and properties into his name. During a press conference, Beatrice, the once humble young woman, appeared holding my husband's arm and clutching a maternity test report. She walked straight up to me and declared, "Andres is my biological son. You stole him from me all these years. Now it's time to give him back." My son also threw a divorce agreement in front of me and, with a cold and calculating voice, said, "Sign this and divorce my father. That way, we can finally be the family of 3 we were always meant to be. And since you gave birth to me and raised me, I'll give you a monthly allowance of $200. I gave a slight smile and replied, "All right. Camila, didn't you have an important board meeting today? Why are you still working here in the study?" Joaquin entered with a cup of hot milk, placing it gently in front of me and using that tender tone he always used. I closed my laptop and smiled back at him. Andres' teacher mentioned he's been coughing a bit lately. I made an appointment with a pediatric specialist for tomorrow. Moved, Joaquin stroked my hair. "You always worry so much. When Andres grows up, he will surely thank you with all his heart." I looked directly at him and firmly replied, "Of course, I'm his mother. If I don't take care of him, who will?" Touched by my words, Joaquin smiled warmly. "You're amazing. Marrying you and raising Andres together has been the greatest blessing of my life." I looked into his eyes, full of affection that seemed sincere, and gave him a faint smile, without saying a word. Joaquin and I had been together for 10 years, 3 years of dating and 7 years of marriage. In that decade, he had always cared for me when I was sick or tired, surprised me in unexpected ways, and held me tightly in moments of passion, whispering that he would love me forever. If I hadn't overheard that conversation, I would never have believed that the man who claimed to love me so much could betray me like that. "Aunt Beatrice, you're finally here." Andres' excited voice echoed from the living room. I immediately got up and left the study, only to see Beatrice confidently walking in. She picked up my son in her arms and kissed him on the cheek, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Andresito, did you miss me?" she asked, her gaze falling on me. Her smile faltered for a moment, and her expression shifted to a mix of discomfort and surprise. Before she could say anything, Joaquin quickly stepped forward to explain. "Darling, there was an outdoor activity for parents and children at Andres' kindergarten today. I thought you'd be very busy with work, so I asked Beatrice to help." Beatrice put Andres down and hastily added, somewhat nervously, Yes, Camila. You've done so much for me over the years that I've always wanted to return the favor." When Joaquin called me, I didn't hesitate to come. Hearing their awkward attempts to justify her presence, I couldn't help but remember the day I gave birth to my son. Beatrice had also been at the hospital that day, accompanying Joaquin under the pretense of meeting the baby. While I endured contractions, she nervously paced the hallway, wringing her hands impatiently. When she found out it was a boy, she ran to the baby, picked him up, and refused to let him go. Her eyes sparkled with joy, reddened with emotion. A nurse, unable to hold back a smile, jokingly asked, "Who are you to the baby? You seem more excited than the mother herself." Beatrice, somewhat embarrassed, tried to explain upon noticing my silence. "Camila, I couldn't help it. Andres is so adorable that I ended up kissing him without realizing it. You're not upset, are you?" I smiled slightly and calmly replied, "Of course not. I've been so busy with work that I sometimes neglect my family. I really appreciate that you're willing to help me with Andres." Upon hearing this, both Beatrice and Joaquin seemed to relax. Andres ran up to me with an innocent expression and asked, "Mom, are you going to work today? Or will you come to kindergarten with Dad and me?" I gently stroked his head and sweetly asked, "What would you prefer Mommy to do?" Without hesitation, Andres replied, "I want Mommy to work and Aunt Beatrice to take Daddy, and me to kindergarten. As if afraid that Andres might say something inappropriate, Joaquin quickly picked him up and explained. Sweetheart, Andres just wants you to stay focused on work. Last time, he even asked me not to bother you because you're working so hard. Beatrice nodded and commented. Andres is such a considerate boy. With such an exceptional mother like you, Camila, it's no wonder he's so well-mannered. Smiling, I responded to my son. All right, we'll do what Andres says. Upon hearing this, Andres jumped with joy, completely ignoring my presence, and grabbed Beatriz and Joaquin's hands, leading them to the door. Watching them walk away together, I allowed a slight smile to cross my face before returning to my study. Maybe they thought I didn't notice anything, but I was far more aware than they imagined. I watched the trio leave the house as if they were a perfect family. Andres, holding Beatriz and Joaquin's hands, looked so happy, so innocent, completely unaware of what was truly happening around him. The smile on Beatriz's face was shameless and triumphant. Joaquin, on the other hand, wore a confident, almost disdainful expression, as if he was certain he would never be discovered. I calmly closed the door and returned to my study, but my mind was far from work. That constant charade had been going on for years, but now they had crossed all limits. Beatriz was so comfortable in my home, it was almost as if she owned the place. My own son, the one I carried for 9 months, raised and protected, didn't even hesitate to prefer her company over mine. And Joaquin had become the shameless accomplice in this entire farce, turning my life into a show of humiliation. For a long time, I stayed silent planning. But today, something inside me changed. It was time to act. I knew I couldn't act on impulse, so I sat down and began organizing my thoughts. I needed to dismantle their fake happiness little by little, with precision. I had enough information to destroy Joaquin and Beatriz in a way they wouldn't recover from anytime soon. My hands trembled slightly as I typed on the computer, gathering all the documents, emails, and evidence I had accumulated over the years. Joaquin thought I was naive, but he didn't know I had access to all his bank accounts, his emails, and even the messages he exchanged with Beatriz. I spent the following weeks acting normally, playing my role as a wife and mother. I prepared dinners, took care of the house, and even maintained my work routine, but inside, I was setting the perfect stage for my revenge. I started with Joaquin. One morning, while he was having coffee, I casually mentioned that the company was going through financial difficulties. I'll need your signature for some transfers, I lied, handing him a fake document that actually transferred part of his shares to my name. Joaquin, as distracted as always, signed without reading. Meanwhile, I kept Beatriz busy with the help she constantly asked for. She thought she was taking advantage of me, but I was using each of her requests as an opportunity to gather more evidence of her financial dependence on Joaquin, which I knew would be useful later. Andres' birthday was the turning point. As always, we threw a big party at home. Beatriz showed up early, carrying a huge gift, pretending to be the perfect godmother. Joaquin couldn't hide the sparkle in his eyes when he saw her. Throughout the party, they exchanged complicit glances, and Andres ran into her arms as if she were his real mother. Watching that scene was painful, but it also filled me with a determination I had never felt before. When all the guests had left, I approached Andres. He was sitting on the couch, excited about the gifts he had received. I sat beside him and calmly asked, Andres, do you think Aunt Beatriz likes you a lot? He smiled. Of course, Mom. She always brings me cool things and plays with me. I nodded, trying to stay calm. And do you think your father likes her a lot too? Andres paused for a moment, clearly confused by the question. I guess so. They're friends, right? I smiled and gently stroked his hair. Yes, of course. Friends. Andres' innocence cut me like a knife, but I knew he was just a piece in Joaquin and Beatriz's game. I couldn't blame him, but I also couldn't let him stay unaware of the truth for much longer. I needed to protect him, even if it meant destroying the image he had of his father. A few weeks later, the plan was in motion. First, I contacted the family lawyer, someone Joaquin had always trusted blindly but who, in reality, was more loyal to me. I explained the situation and showed him the evidence I had gathered. He was shocked but agreed to help me. We prepared the documents to freeze Joaquin's accounts and ensure he couldn't access any family assets. On the day everything fell apart for them, I made sure to be home. Joaquin arrived home early from work, clearly irritated. Camila, why are my accounts blocked? What did you do? He shouted as he entered the living room. I was sitting on the couch, calmly sipping a cup of tea. I looked at him with the calmest smile I could manage. I blocked everything. I thought it would be safer that way. After all, you and Beatriz have a history of spending money irresponsibly. Joaquin's face turned pale. How do you know about? Before he could finish, Beatriz burst into the house, panic on her face. Joaquin, my account is blocked too. I can't access anything. I slowly stood up and walked toward them. You two thought you could fool me forever, didn't you? But you forgot one thing. Never underestimate someone with patience and access to information. I showed them a stack of documents. Here's all the proof of the transfers you made to Beatriz, the records of when you used company money to pay her debts, and even the messages where you both planned how to deceive me. Beatriz tried to justify herself, but I cut her off. Save your energy. I've already sent everything to the board of directors and the lawyer. Oh, and Joaquin, the divorce is underway. Good luck trying to stay afloat once all our assets are divided. I finished with a triumphant smile. They stood frozen, speechless, as I turned and climbed the stairs. In that moment, I knew I had won. No matter what happened next, I had regained control of my life. And they were finally paying the price for their betrayal. After that day, Joaquin and Beatriz's lives began to crumble inevitably. They tried to regain control, but every move they made was anticipated by me. I had left them without financial resources and publicly exposed, and that was just the beginning. The first thing I did was finalize the divorce. With all the evidence I presented in court, including the embezzlement of company funds to finance Beatriz's whims and the messages where they plotted to take everything from me, the judge had no doubts. I was granted all marital assets and full custody of Andres, even though he wasn't biologically my son. Joaquin's lawyer tried to argue that Andres should stay with him, but I had already played another card, a testimony from the school board describing how Joaquin allowed Beatriz to act as Andres' mother and emotionally neglected me. The financial impact on Joaquin was devastating. With his accounts frozen and the company's shares transferred to my name, he lost all his power. The board members who once feared him quickly removed him from the company. All he had left was public humiliation. Newspapers began publishing stories about his betrayals, and he became a laughingstock in the social circles he once valued so much. Beatriz, on the other hand, tried to stay close to Andres, but it didn't take long for her true nature to be exposed. I discovered she had accumulated debts while pretending to build a business that never existed. Without access to Joaquin's or my money, she was forced to sell all her belongings to try to pay off what she owed. She even tried to get close to Andres directly, but he, finally realizing her true character, began to reject her. He was young but not foolish. Over time, Beatriz's lies and manipulations became clear to him. As for Andres, it was a difficult journey. He was confused and resentful at first, not knowing whom to trust. To him, Joaquin was still his father, and Beatriz had been a mother figure for much of his childhood. But I knew that time and truth were on my side. It took months, but I managed to rebuild our relationship. The truth was revealed to him little by little, helping him understand who had truly been by his side during the most important moments of his life. Joaquin tried to rebuild his life, but every door he knocked on was closed. The influence he once had disappeared. With no money, no allies, and without his powerful man image, he eventually moved to a small town, living in a modest apartment and relying on odd jobs. Whenever I hear news about him, which is rare since he's faded into obscurity, I realize that the man who once humiliated me is now just a shadow of who he used to be. And honestly, I feel nothing. No hatred, no pity. He is insignificant now. Beatriz vanished from the city. I heard from acquaintances that she went to live with a distant sister, but their relationship didn't last long. Beatriz was never someone who could support herself, and without anyone to fund her luxuries or tolerate her arrogance, she quickly faded into oblivion. Once, years later, I received a letter from her. It was pathetic. She apologized, but not out of genuine remorse. She wanted money. I tore the letter apart without responding. And me? Well, I finally felt free. The divorce, though painful at first, was the best thing that could have happened to me. I took full control of the company and restructured it, removing anyone loyal to Joaquin. Under my leadership, profits soared, and the company soon became known not just for its financial success, but also for the values I implemented. I became a respected woman in the business world and never again allowed anyone to underestimate me. Andres, in turn, grew up. He went to university, and after understanding the whole story, he began to admire me more than ever. Today, we have a strong relationship. He knows that although we aren't biologically connected, I am his true mother. He visits me whenever he can and even started working at the company. Despite everything, I raised him to be fair and honest, unlike his biological father. I am proud of the man he has become. Looking back, I see that everything I went through transformed me. I am no longer the naive woman who allowed Joaquin and Beatriz to toy with my life. Now, I am someone who has learned to stand up for herself and protect what is hers. My revenge was complete, but more importantly, it was just. I let each of them reap exactly what they had sown without dirtying my hands directly. Today, I live in peace. Joaquin and Beatriz are just names from the past, echoes of a story that no longer affects me. My life moved on, and I can proudly say that I won. My success, my freedom, and Andres' love are the only answers I need for everything that happened. They lost everything, while I gained my life back. And that, to me, is more than enough.
I wore the joke bikini my friend got me. So last summer, I was getting ready for the school party at my friend Jess's house. Like 40 people were going to be there from our high school. And I was super nervous because my ex would be there with his new girlfriend. Jess had given me this bikini a week before as a joke gift for my birthday. It was this tiny, bright neon green string thing that barely covered anything. The top was basically 2 triangles, and the bottoms were like dental floss. She said she found it at some sketchy online store and thought it would be funny. I tried it on, and honestly, it looked amazing on me. Way better than my usual boring black one piece. But it was definitely meant to be a gag gift. The size was somehow perfect, though. Like it fit me better than any swimsuit I'd ever owned. I kept staring at myself in the mirror thinking maybe I should just wear it for real. The day of the party, I'm standing in my room holding both suits. My safe black one piece that made me look like a mom, or the neon green string situation that made me look like I belonged in a music video. I kept thinking about how my ex Tyler dumped me 3 months ago, saying I was too conservative and boring in bed. His new girlfriend Madison was this wild party girl who posted thirst traps every day. So I said screw it and put on the green bikini. I threw a cover up over it and drove to Jess's house. When I got there, the party was already going strong. Music was blasting, people were jumping in the pool, and I could smell the barbecue from the backyard. I found Jess by the snack table, and she nearly choked on her drink when she saw me. She was like, "Oh my God, you actually wore it," and started laughing. I told her I wanted to try something different. She said I looked incredible, but also I looked like a kid. When I took off my cover-up, I felt like the entire world had stopped. The neon green bikini seemed to glow under the party lights, and I could feel all eyes turning toward me like magnets. It was a strange sensation, but addictive. For the first time in my life, I felt powerful. I walked to the pool's edge with a confidence I didn't even know I had. Each step was calculated, each movement purposeful. I could feel the whispers around me, conversations stopping mid-sentence, phones being discreetly raised. And in the middle of it all, I felt that familiar gaze burning into me, Tyler. He was on the other side of the pool with Madison clinging to his arm, but his eyes were fixed on me. His mouth was slightly open, and I could see he had completely forgotten about his girlfriend beside him. Madison was saying something in his ear, but he wasn't paying attention. He was hypnotized. I smiled to myself and dove headfirst into the pool. The water was warm and perfect, and when I emerged, shaking my wet hair, I heard some whistles and shouts of approval. My hair was stuck to my back, water dripping down my body, and the bikini. Well, it was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. "Damn, who is that?" I heard someone ask. "That's Tyler's ex," I heard the response. Seriously, he's crazy for letting that go. I pretended not to be listening, but each word was like honey to my ears. I swam to the pool's edge and got out slowly, letting the water drip down my body. I grabbed a towel that was on one of the chairs and started drying myself, still pretending I hadn't noticed Tyler staring at me. Marcus, a guy from the basketball team who had always been sweet to me but whom I'd never paid attention to because I was with Tyler, appeared out of nowhere with 2 drinks in his hands. "Brought this for you," he said, handing me a cup with a beautiful smile. "Thanks, Marcus. You're an angel," I replied, lightly touching his arm. The drink was sweet and refreshing, and I drank slowly, savoring each sip. Marcus started talking to me about the party, about how beautiful I looked, about how he'd never seen me like this, and I responded with smiles and laughter, feeling more and more confident. That's when I felt a presence behind me. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. His cologne, that same cologne I used to love, reached me before he even spoke. "Hi," Tyler said, appearing beside me. "Hi," I replied, without taking my eyes off Marcus. "How are you?" he asked, and I could feel the nervousness in his voice. "I'm great, thanks," I replied dryly, finally turning to him. His eyes quickly traveled over my body before meeting mine. "You look different." "Different how?" I asked, tilting my head to the side. "You know how?" he said, his voice a little lower. Marcus was standing beside me, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "I'm going to get more drinks," he said. "Do you want anything else?" "Yes, I do," I replied, giving him a huge smile. "Anything sweet." He smiled back and walked away. Tyler stood there, clearly irritated by the interruption. "New boyfriend?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Why do you want to know?" I shot back. "Just curious." "Oh, I see. The same curiosity you had when you cheated on me with Madison?" Tyler swallowed hard. "I never cheated on you." "Of course you did. It may not have been physical, but you were already with her in your head long before you broke up with me." He didn't respond, because he knew it was true. Instead, he kept staring at me with that look I knew well, the look of when he wanted something. "You look incredible," he finally said. "Thanks," I replied, without giving it more importance. "Seriously, that bikini, you never wore anything like that with me. Maybe because you never gave me reasons to feel beautiful enough to wear it." The phrase came out harsher than I expected, and I saw it hit right on target. Tyler was speechless for a moment. "I always thought you were beautiful," he said. "No, Tyler, you thought I was safe. There's a difference." Marcus came back with my drink, and I thanked him with a kiss on his cheek. I saw Tyler's face darken when I did that. "Thanks. You're a sweetheart," I said to Marcus, running my hand down his arm. "Don't mention it," Marcus replied, clearly pleased with the attention. Tyler stood there, watching our interaction with an increasingly irritated expression. It was exactly the reaction I wanted. "Come on, let's dance," I said to Marcus, taking his hand. "Sure," he replied, following me. As we walked away, I could feel Tyler's eyes glued to me, and for the first time in months, I felt in control. The music was loud and contagious, and I started dancing in a way I had never danced before. My hips moved to the rhythm of the music, my arms rose above my head, and I could feel all the male gazes at the party fixed on me. It was an intoxicating sensation. Marcus danced with me, clearly impressed with this new version of me. His hands sometimes touched my waist, and I let them. Sometimes our bodies got close during the dance, and I didn't pull away. All of this with Tyler watching from afar, with an increasingly desperate expression. Other guys started approaching, wanting to dance with me too. Jake, who was on the football team, David, who was one of the most popular guys at school, and even the substitute PE teacher, who shouldn't have been there but whom Jess had invited because she thought he was cute. I danced with everyone, laughed with everyone, flirted with everyone, and Tyler remained there, standing, watching everything with a mixture of desire and anger I had never seen in him before. At one point, when the music became slower, Marcus pulled me close and we started dancing close together. His hands were on my waist, and I could feel the warmth of his body against mine. It was nice, it was exciting, and it was exactly what I needed to forget Tyler. But even so, I couldn't stop looking at the corner where he was, and every time our eyes met, I saw that he was dying of jealousy. It was better than any revenge I could have planned. The night was just beginning, and I already knew it would be unforgettable. Not just for me, but especially for Tyler. He was going to regret forever having left me, and I was going to make sure of that. The party was getting more and more lively, and I was feeling like the protagonist of a movie. Every movement of mine was observed, every laugh of mine echoed through the house, and I loved this feeling of being the center of attention. Tyler couldn't stay still. He kept circulating around the party, always finding an excuse to pass by me. He'd go get drinks at the table next to the pool, go greet friends who were in my group, do anything that would justify his presence near me. Madison was clearly irritated. She tried to start conversations with him, held his arm, gave him little kisses on his cheek, but Tyler was clearly disconnected. His eyes always returned to me, and this was driving her crazy. "Tyler, are you listening to me?" I heard her ask, raising her voice. "Of course I am," he replied, but without taking his eyes off me. I was sitting on the pool's edge, with my feet in the water, talking to a group of guys that had formed around me. Marcus was on my right side, Jake on the left, and 3 others were in front of me, all clearly interested in me. "Have you always been like this?" David asked, who was crouched in front of me. "Like what?" I asked, tilting my head. "Like this, free, confident, sexy." I laughed softly. I've always been like this. It's just that some people didn't know how to recognize it. Lucky for us, then, Jake said, and everyone laughed. I could feel Tyler approaching. He was trying to be discreet, but it was obvious he was coming in our direction. I decided to turn up the heat of the situation. Do you guys want to see something? I asked the group, with a mischievous smile. Sure, they replied in chorus. I got up and went to the speaker. I changed the music to something more sensual and came back near the pool. I started dancing alone, moving my body provocatively, feeling the music run through my veins. The guys around me were hypnotized. Some started recording with their phones, others just watched with their mouths open. I felt like a goddess, powerful and irresistible. That's when I felt a hand on my arm. I turned and saw Tyler, with a serious expression. Can we talk? He asked. I'm busy, I replied, continuing to dance. Please, he insisted. Say it here, I said, stopping dancing but not moving away from the group. Tyler looked around, clearly uncomfortable with the audience. Alone, he said. No, I replied firmly. Here is fine. Say what you have to say. He swallowed hard. I think I made a mistake. What kind of mistake? I asked, playing dumb. Breaking up with you. An awkward silence settled around us. The guys who were with me exchanged glances, and I could feel that everyone was paying attention to our conversation. Oh, really? I asked, crossing my arms. Yes, you're incredible, different, sexy. I never saw you like this. Funny, I said, smiling coldly. I didn't change anything. I've always been like this. You were just too blind to notice. Then why were you never like this with me? He asked, and I could hear the desperation in his voice. Because you didn't deserve it, I replied, without hesitation. The answer caught him off guard. He stood there, processing what I had said. You made me feel like I wasn't enough, I continued, that I was boring, conservative, dull. You destroyed my self-esteem and then left me because I wasn't interesting enough. I never said that. He tried to defend himself. You didn't need to say it. Your actions spoke for you. The guys around me were watching everything like it was a movie. Some seemed impressed with how I was handling the situation. But now you're being yourself, Tyler said. Exactly. And do you know why? Because you're not here anymore to make me feel small. At that moment, Madison appeared furious. Seriously, Tyler? You're going to stand there humiliating yourself and me because of her? Tyler didn't even look at Madison. His eyes were fixed on me. She's right, Marcus said, standing up. You lost your chance, man. Nobody asked you, Tyler shot back, irritated. You don't need to ask, Marcus replied, standing protectively in front of me. Anyone with eyes can see you didn't know what you had. And now she's not yours anymore, Jake added, positioning himself on my other side. Tyler looked around and saw he was surrounded by guys who were clearly on my side. The situation was getting tense. Let's go, Tyler, Madison said, pulling him by the arm. You're making a fool of yourself. No, Tyler said, breaking free from her. I'm not leaving. Then I am, Madison retorted. You choose. Either you come with me now or it's over between us. Tyler looked at her, then at me, then at her again. I could see his internal conflict, the struggle between pride and desire. I'm staying, he finally said. Madison was shocked. You can't be serious. I'm serious, Tyler confirmed without taking his eyes off me. Then that's it, Madison screamed. You're pathetic. Tyler, running after an ex who clearly doesn't want you. She left stomping, and I could hear her cursing as she walked away. Tyler stood there, as if he had just realized what he had done. I hope it was worth it, I said to him, turning around and going back to my group of admirers. But deep down, I knew I had just won the first battle. Tyler had chosen to stay because of me, had lost his girlfriend because of me, and the night was just beginning. What a show, Marcus whispered in my ear. It's not over yet, I replied, smiling. And I was right. The best was yet to come. With Madison out of the picture, Tyler was completely loose. He didn't know what to do with himself anymore, wandering around the party like a ghost, always trying to get close to me but without the courage to get too close after what had happened. I, on the other hand, was having more fun than ever. Without the pressure of having to compete with Madison, I could focus on enjoying the night and making Tyler regret even more the decision he had made. The party was at its peak. The music was loud, people were excited, and I was at the center of everything. I decided it was time to raise the level of provocation. Do you guys want to play truth or dare? I asked the group around me. Sure, they replied in chorus. We sat in a circle near the pool. There were about 10 of us. Me, Marcus, Jake, David, some other guys, and some girls who had joined the group. Tyler was a few meters away, pretending to talk to other friends, but I knew he was paying attention to everything. "I'll start," I said, grabbing an empty bottle that was on the ground. "Truth or dare?" I asked Marcus when the bottle stopped on him. "Dare," he replied without hesitation. "I dare you to kiss me," I said, surprising everyone. Marcus didn't need to be convinced twice. He leaned toward me and kissed me. It was a good kiss, full of desire, and I gave myself completely to it. When we separated, I heard some whistles and applause. "Wow," Jake said. "What a start." I looked discreetly in Tyler's direction and saw he had clenched fists, his jaw locked. He was clearly furious. The game continued, and the tasks became increasingly daring. I kissed 2 more guys, danced sensually with one of the girls, and even took a dive in just my bikini, which didn't cover much anyway. Tyler was getting more and more agitated. He drank more than usual, spoke louder, and I could see he was at his limit. That's when the bottle stopped on me again. "Truth or dare?" Jess asked, who had joined the group. "Dare," I replied without hesitation. Jess smiled mischievously. "I dare you to skinny dip." The entire group fell silent. It was a daring challenge, even by the party's standards. "Seriously?" I asked, laughing. "Seriously," Jess confirmed. "But only if you want to, of course." I looked around. Everyone was staring at me, waiting for my answer. I looked in Tyler's direction and saw he was practically drooling, waiting to see what I was going to do. "Okay," I said, standing up. "But you can't record." "We promise," Marcus said. I moved away from the group a bit, toward the darker part of the pool. Slowly, I untied the top of my bikini and threw it on the ground. Then, I took off the bottom part too. The silence was total. Even the music seemed to have gotten quieter. I was completely naked in front of everyone, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel shame. I felt power. I dove into the pool and swam to the other side. When I emerged, shaking my hair, I heard an explosion of screams and applause. I got out of the water slowly, grabbing a towel that was on a nearby chair. "My God," someone whispered. "That was incredible," said another. Tyler was standing a few meters away, completely hypnotized. His eyes traveled over my body even with the towel, and I could see he was completely lost. "Satisfied?" I asked, smiling at the group. "More than satisfied," Jake replied. I went back to the circle and put the bikini back on, but the atmosphere had completely changed. Everyone looked at me differently now. More respectfully, more admiringly. "Your turn," I said to Jess, spinning the bottle. But before she could do anything, Tyler appeared out of nowhere. "We need to talk," he said, pulling me by the arm. "Hey, man," Marcus said, standing up. "Leave her alone." "This is none of your business," Tyler retorted. "It's okay," I said, raising my hand. "I'll talk to him." I walked away from the group with Tyler, who was clearly altered. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he asked as soon as we were alone. "Having fun," I replied calmly. "That wasn't fun. That was exhibitionism. So what? What's the problem? The problem is you're not like this. How do you know who I am? Do you really know me?" Tyler ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. "You never did anything like that with me. You were never this free, because you didn't deserve to see this side of me," I replied without hesitation. "What side? The slutty side?" The phrase came out of his mouth before he could stop it. As soon as he said it, I saw he immediately regretted it. "Sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to say that." But it was too late. "Oh, so now I'm a slut for feeling free? For having fun? For doing what I want with my body?" "No, that's not it." "That's exactly it. You can't accept that I'm happy without you, that I'm confident without you, that I'm sexy without you." Tyler was speechless. "You know what your problem is, Tyler. You want a submissive girlfriend who depends on you, who hides behind you. But when she discovers she can be more, you can't handle it." "I can handle it," he said desperately. "You can't. And you know how I know? Because you just called me a slut for doing exactly what you always wanted me to do." Tyler tried to touch me, but I pulled away. "No," I said firmly. "You lost the right to touch me. You lost the right to have any opinion about what I do." "I still love you," he said. And for the first time that night, his voice sounded vulnerable. "No," I replied. "You love the idea of possessing me, but I'm not your property. I never was." I went back to the group, leaving Tyler alone. When I sat in the circle again, everyone looked at me with admiration. "Everything okay?" Marcus asked. "Perfect," I replied, smiling. And it was true. I felt perfect, free, powerful. And Tyler could cry in his corner because I was no longer his problem. The rest of the night was a succession of moments I knew I would remember forever. After my argument with Tyler, it was as if something had been liberated inside me. I was completely uninhibited, doing things I would never have had the courage to do before. Tyler continued roaming the party, but now with a different posture. He was no longer irritated or possessive. He was defeated. I could see in his eyes that he had understood he had completely lost any chance with me. "Are you okay?" Jess asked, approaching me. "I've never been better," I replied. And it was true. "That dive was epic," she said, laughing. "You became a legend today." "Well, you challenged me. I didn't think you'd go for it." "I didn't think so either," I admitted. But it was liberating. We both laughed. And I felt like I had crossed an invisible line. The insecure girl who had arrived at the party a few hours ago no longer existed. In her place, there was a confident woman who knew exactly what she wanted. "You know what?" Jess said. "That bikini was the best thing I ever gave you." I completely agree. The party started winding down around 2 in the morning. Some people had already left. Others were starting to say goodbye. I was sitting in an armchair near the pool talking to Marcus when Tyler approached once more. "Can I talk to you?" he asked, but this time his voice was different. There was no more arrogance or possessiveness, just sadness. I looked at Marcus, who understood the message and discreetly walked away. "What do you want, Tyler?" I asked, tired. He sat on the pool's edge in front of me. "I want to apologize." "For what?" "For calling me a slut?" "For everything," he said, running his hands over his face. "For making you feel like you weren't enough. For leaving you. For being an asshole." I didn't respond. I just waited for him to continue. "I see now that you were always incredible," he continued. "I was just too blind to notice." "Tyler." "No," he interrupted me. "Let me finish. I lost the most incredible woman I ever knew because I was a coward. Because I couldn't deal with the fact that you were better than me." "You didn't lose," I said calmly. "You chose to throw it away." "I know, and I'm going to regret this for the rest of my life." We were silent for a moment. I could hear the low music in the background, the sound of people talking, the noise of the pool water. "I don't want you to regret it," I finally said. "I want you to be happy." "How can I be happy knowing I destroyed the best thing that happened in my life?" "By learning from mistakes," I replied. "And treating the next girl better than you treated me." Tyler looked at me with teary eyes. "There won't be a next girl. Not like you." "Yes, there will," I said, lightly touching his hand. "There will be. And when there is, you'll remember this night, and you'll treat her like she deserves to be treated." "I still love you," he said again. "I know," I replied. "But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes we hurt the people we love so much that there's no going back." Tyler lowered his head, defeated. "You're right. I forgive you," I said, surprising myself. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." He looked at me with surprise. "Thank you. But that doesn't change anything," I continued. "We're not getting back together. Never." "I know," he said, his voice almost a whisper. He got up and stood in front of me for a moment. "I hope you're very happy," he said. "You deserve it." "I know I deserve it," I replied, smiling. Tyler walked away, and I knew it was the last time we would have a conversation like that. He had finally understood that he had lost any chance with me, and I had finally completely freed myself from him. Marcus came back and sat beside me. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Perfect," I replied, leaning against him. "Do you want me to take you home?" he asked. "In a little while," I replied. I want to enjoy it a little more." We sat there, looking at the stars reflected in the pool water. I felt complete, fulfilled, as if I had finally found who I really was. "You know," I said to Marcus, "I think this was the best night of my life." "Why?" he asked. "Because it was the first night I was completely myself." Marcus smiled and pulled me closer. "Here's to more nights like this." "Here's to that," I agreed. And deep down, I knew that night had changed everything. Not just in my relationship with Tyler, but in my relationship with myself. I had discovered a version of me I didn't know existed. A confident, sexy, powerful version. And I would never go back to being the insecure girl I had been before. The following week, the entire school was talking about the party. I could feel the stares when I walked through the hallways, heard the whispers when I entered the classroom, noticed the conversations that stopped when I approached. But this time it was different. They weren't looks of pity or whispers of disdain. They were looks of admiration, whispers of envy, Conversations about how I had changed. You became a legend, Jess said, approaching my locker on Monday morning. That's an exaggeration, I replied, laughing. It's not an exaggeration. Everyone is talking about you, about how you killed it at the party. And Tyler? Tyler is devastated. Hasn't talked to anyone since Saturday, and Madison, well, she's spreading around that you're a desperate slut. Let her talk, I said, shrugging. Opinions from people who don't know me don't affect me. You really have changed, Jess said, staring at me. I didn't change, I corrected. I just stopped hiding. The first class was strange. I could feel everyone looking at me, but instead of shrinking in my chair like I would have done before, I sat up straight, with my head held high. I was wearing a slightly more revealing blouse than usual, a slightly shorter skirt, and I felt incredible. Tyler was sitting a few rows behind me, and I could feel his gaze on my back, but I didn't turn around once. He no longer existed to me. At break, Marcus approached. Hi, he said, smiling. Hi, I replied, returning the smile. How are you dealing with all this attention? Well, I said. Actually, I'm enjoying it. Marcus laughed. You deserve it. Saturday was... wow. It was liberating, I admitted. We were talking when Tyler appeared. He looked terrible, with deep dark circles and a defeated expression I had never seen on him. Hi, he said quietly. Hi, I replied, without much enthusiasm. Marcus tensed beside me, clearly ready to defend me if necessary. I just wanted, I don't know, to talk to you, Tyler said. We already talked, I replied. Saturday night. I know, but... Tyler, I interrupted him. We have nothing more to talk about. You made your choices. I made mine. But I still... No, I said firmly. Stop. You're just humiliating yourself. Tyler looked at Marcus, then at me, and finally understood that he no longer had space in my life. Okay, he said quietly. Sorry for bothering you. He walked away, and I felt... nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not satisfaction. Tyler simply no longer provoked any emotion in me. You're incredible, Marcus said. The way you handled that. It's the way I should have handled it a long time ago, I replied. The following days were a roller coaster of emotions. I received messages from guys who had never paid attention to me before, was invited to parties I had never been invited to, and felt an attention I had never experienced. On the first weekend after the party, I went to a nightclub with Jess's older friends. It was a place I would never have had the courage to go before, but now I felt confident enough for anywhere. I wore a super tight and short black dress, high heels, and did my makeup more dramatically. When I looked at myself in the mirror before leaving, I barely recognized the girl reflected. It was as if I had become a completely different person. At the nightclub, I danced like I had never danced, drank more than I should have, and flirted with several older men. It was an addictive sensation, this power of seduction I had discovered. One guy in particular caught my attention. He must have been around 25. Tall, dark, with that mysterious air that attracted me. He watched me all night, and when he finally approached, my heart raced. Can I buy you a drink? He asked with a hoarse voice that made me shiver. You can, I replied, smiling provocatively. What's your name? Depends, I said, getting closer to him. Why do you want to know? He smiled. Because I want to know what to scream when... When what? I asked, playing dumb. When you drive me crazy, he completed. It was an obvious pickup line, but it worked. I spent the rest of the night dancing with him, letting his hands explore my body over my clothes, feeling his breath on my neck. Come with me, he whispered in my ear at one point. Where? My apartment is close by. For a moment I considered the possibility. It would be the most daring thing I had ever done, but something inside me said it wasn't time yet. Not today, I replied, but maybe another time. He seemed disappointed, but respected my decision. Can I have your number? No, I said, smiling. But if it's destiny, we'll meet again. I left the nightclub feeling powerful. I had an older man completely interested in me, and had enough control not to do anything hasty. On the way home, I thought about how my life had changed in just 1 week. The girl who had arrived at Jess's party afraid to meet her ex no longer existed. In her place, there was a woman who knew exactly what she wanted and how to get it. When I got home, my mother was waiting for me awake. How was the night? She asked. Incredible, I replied, and it was true. You've been different lately, she observed. Different how? More confident. More adult. Maybe it's because I finally discovered who I am, I said. My mother smiled. And who are you? Someone who doesn't hide anymore, I replied. Someone who isn't afraid to be who they really are. I'm proud of you, she said. I'm proud of myself too, I admitted. And it was true. For the first time in my life, I was genuinely proud of who I was. Not because someone validated me, but because I had validated myself. At school on Monday, the transformation was complete. I was no longer Tyler's ex-girlfriend. I was me. And that was more than enough. Tyler tried to approach a few more times over the following weeks. But I always maintained the same posture. Polite, but firm. He was no longer part of my life, and I had no interest in changing that. Marcus and I started getting to know each other better. He was kind, funny, and treated me like I deserved to be treated. It wasn't love yet, but it was something good, something healthy. You know that half the world is in love with you now, right? He said one day, while we were having lunch together. Half the world? I asked, laughing. Okay, half the male school, he corrected. And you? Are you in love with me? Marcus got serious for a moment. I'm falling in love, he admitted. But I know you're still discovering yourself, so I'm not in a hurry. That was exactly what I needed to hear. Someone who respected me, who understood I was in a process of transformation. Thank you, I said, touching his hand. For what? For giving me time, for respecting me. It's the least you deserve. And in that moment, looking into his eyes, I knew I was on the right path. Not just in choosing partners, but in life in general. The insecure girl who hid behind loose clothes and forced smiles had given way to a confident woman who knew her worth. And that, more than any revenge against Tyler, was the greatest victory I could have achieved. A few weeks later, I found out Tyler was trying to win Madison back, but she didn't want anything to do with him anymore. Apparently, the humiliation of being left at a party because of his ex had been too much for her. I felt sorry for him, but not enough to really care. Tyler was the past. I was present and future. And the future had never seemed so bright. At graduation, months later, I was radiant. I wore a dress that highlighted every curve of my body, was accompanied by Marcus, and felt like I could conquer the world. Tyler was there, alone, watching me from afar with an expression that mixed regret and admiration. But his looks no longer affected me. He was just another face in the crowd. Ready for college? Marcus asked, pulling me to dance. More than ready, I replied. Ready for whatever comes. And while we danced, I thought about the neon green bikini that had changed my life. Not because it was provocative or sexy, but because it had given me the courage to be who I really was. Sometimes all we need is a little push to discover our true power. Mine came in the form of a joke gift from my best friend, and I would never be the same.